Welcome to Hudson Rotary. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms, and to lead us in the invocation this morning is Jim Young.
Good morning, Rotarians. Good to see everybody out on this finally wintry morning. Let us pray. Father, we come to you this morning with grateful hearts. With gratitude for our health, we pray for those who are ill. With gratitude for our freedom, we pray for those who are imprisoned or living in countries that have no choice. With gratitude for our plentiful food supply, having more than we need in all ways, we pray for those who have nothing. God, help us with these gifts you have given us so that we might help others and help us serve with truly grateful hearts. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jim. And to lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Tom Tobin.
Good morning. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it true? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Tom. And to lead us in song this morning, Dick Pearsall.
I get there. I think with Valentine's Day coming up, let's sing Let Me Call You Sweetheart. There's nothing concerned about that with you guys. But let me call you sweetheart. Here we go. Let me call you sweetheart. I'm in love with you. Let me hear you whisper that you love me too. Bum, bum, bum. See the love light glowing in your eyes so true. Here comes the big ending. Let me call you sweetheart. I'm in love with you. Happy Valentine's to all of you.
On that note, I want to give you just one little piece of information about myself. 54 years ago today, I met my wife on a blind date. And now, our president, Joe Avella, who has delivered the first gift for the Rotary Gala, and the letters haven't even gone out. So some of our donors read the Hudson Hub and then call and say, we have something for you. So it's really easy. And that'll be coming up on March 2nd. Joe Avella.
Thank you, Ron. It is easy when you have good donors. And thanks Dick. It's good to see you back and leading us in song. So we have only one guest today, and we'll introduce Ray a little bit later. So let's start with our 3-minute Rotarian, and today it is Phil Herman, and we welcome Phil back from an injury, and I'm sure he'll update us a little bit about his injury.
Well, good morning. Good morning. So I'm the 3-minute-ish Rotarian today, and I'm taking a page from Kelly Brennan's book. I remember when he was 3-minute Rotarian ways back and had a series of pictures, and I thought it was really well done, and so I stole that concept. So let's just get it out of the way right now. That was the ottoman I was moving when I tore my bicep tendon. And I'm going to share a little bit, when we talk about my personal life, I'll share a little bit with some of the activities I enjoy, and you'll realize why that was a little bit shocking to me. But it's heavier than it looks, let me tell you. And I was Yeah, so I was lifting, sliding, heard a ripping sound, actually thought it may have been the ottoman for a second. When really, literally, for just a split second before I felt the ripping pain going up my arm. A few doctor appointments and MRIs later, they decided, or they told me that it really I'd severed my bicep tendon and had to have surgery to put it back together. That's a 5 to 6 month process till I reach no restrictions. So I'm slowly coming along, but there are certainly worse things in life that could occur. So trying to keep it all in perspective. About my personal life, there's my family. I look at that picture sometimes and I go, oh my gosh, how did I get to be that guy? Seriously, I feel pretty lucky. That picture's a couple years old. My daughter's now 14. She's a freshman, and my son is my son Hayden. My daughter's Olivia. My son Hayden is a 6th grader. He's 11 years old. That's my wife Lisa there. We live in Stowe. That's at our house there. Here's another picture. We have you might remember we live on property that my dad grew up on, and my kids are actually 5th generation now on that same property. Some of it has been sold off for development, but there's a chunk of it left, and fortunately my dad felt it was better for raising kids and grandkids than development, so I feel really fortunate there off of Steele's Corners to live. That pond there, that lake, that we're standing next to, my grandfather built in the 40s, and so it's great to have a reminder right out my back door about where I came from, and for my kids too every day. Those are our dogs, Bronco and Banks. Banks is the Yorkie poo there. He's named Banks, which is short for Outer Banks, where we should have gone on vacation instead of getting that darn dog. And our 3 goats. Literally, those are our goats. Boots, Charming, and Eugene. And for those of you that have ever been on a real farm, these are not real farm animals. These are farm pets. It was a project between my parents, who live right up the driveway, and my kids, and I'm not going to say much more about that. So I love outdoor activities. Growing up there, I have developed a love of the outdoors. This is one of my primary passions. This is my idea of camping. That's not a wolf there, it's our dog outside. That's our 6-man tent. I have a 2-man tent, and this is my wife's idea of camping. So last year we compromised on this route. And headed up to Michigan in that get-up for 11 days, which enabled us to do things like this. And that is my sweet spot right there. I love that is a great way to wake up making breakfast that way. I'm spending time with my kids on the shores of the lake, beautiful scenery. That is right up my alley. I love fishing, love hunting. There's last year's deer. There's a couple of fish for the last couple years. My son Hayden has caught 2 Fish Ohio fish. I've never caught one in my life. He's got a walleye and a crappie on the list there. So love the outdoor activities. Love the adventure sports. And every chance I get, this is a couple of my friends and our daughters headed down the Youghiogheny River. It's actually funny. It looks like we're having a great time, but if you zoom in more closely on that picture, you'll see that I apparently was a little bit scared or confused or a little bit of both. I'm not sure exactly what that's about. My friends enjoy periodically just sending that picture to my phone just to remind me that I'm special. I love riding ATVs, mountain bikes. My son and I ride 4-wheelers together. He's riding the 4-wheeler that I got in 1987 now, a little Honda 125, and so it's still around, and we enjoy those activities. And this is the race I was training for when I was injured. So I enjoy the adventure races. The Spartan race is a half marathon with 35 obstacles, all off-road. And so I did one, I did a Spartan last year, was training again for one on May 7th. And so it's really not a surprise that I was injured, given those lists of activities. It's just a surprise that I was injured moving an ottoman. That's the only thing. If someone would have told me, yeah, you're going to tear your bicep, I'd be like, well, no surprise. It's just a surprise that I did it moving an ottoman. One of my other favorite activities, I'm not always 90 miles an hour with my hair on fire. I really enjoy reading. And these are some of the books that I've read recently or in the last year or so, and or I'm working on right now, project-based learning right now. it's a challenge with the schedule that I have to try and sit down for extended periods of time, but I try to keep a book with me in most places that I go, because that way no one can ever waste your time. If someone's running late for a meeting, all you have to do is open the book, and you can always grab and take advantage of those couple minutes. And you never have to worry about losing time. You never have to be worried about waiting on someone to come out of soccer practice or waiting on a doctor appointment. If you have a book with you, you can always take advantage of that time. So that's pretty much where I grab my reading time. As I talk about career, most of you know I was a teacher, I was a principal, I was a superintendent in the previous school district before coming to Hudson. 11 years ago, came to Hudson as assistant superintendent in charge of human resources, and then now I'm in my third year as superintendent. I don't spend a lot of time looking back. I spend a lot of time thinking about, when it comes to professional in my career, I spend a lot of time thinking about moving forward. This is our second graders last week at the high school after going through an entrepreneurship series where our business club students came to Ellsworth Hill and taught them the basic tenets of entrepreneurship. Then they created items. These kids, I think, are selling pet rocks, which are study pals, to high school students. They then get a chance to sell. They also had bookmarks. They also had keychains. And they learned the basic understanding of entrepreneurship in second grade. James, if you can press play on that. This is a 3D printer yesterday that is at McDowell Elementary. I don't know if it might not work. It's just a quick 15-second clip. And so we have students at McDowell Elementary who are studying different types of birds, understanding the characteristics of those birds, using CAD drawing software to design birdhouses specifically for those birds, and then 3D printing them. In this particular case, they moved on to, I think, a toy unit where they tried to design the perfect toys, and that 3D printer was printing a gear there. So it looks like it's not going to go ahead and play for you, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and go on to the next one. But my point in sharing those things with you when I think about this is that if we have second graders studying entrepreneurship and third graders printing in 3D with items that they have designed, what are they going to be doing by the time that they're seniors? And so when it comes to my career, I spend a tremendous amount of time thinking about this. This is the graph that wakes me up at night. In public education today, we are educating more students and in better ways who are performing significantly higher than ever before in history. However, the world is changing faster than how we are changing in public education across the nation. And I never want Hudson City Schools to be, for this graph to represent Hudson City Schools. That is the tremendous challenge that we have before us. That's what wakes me up at night. That's what gets me going in the morning. The fact of the matter is, we have to stay true to tried and true methods and develop the characteristics in students that enable them to be successful. And those are tried and true characteristics over a long period of time. We've talked about that before. But we also have to evolve at such a rate that we're able to keep up with graduates, or to enable graduates that can keep up with the changing world. And that, in today's world, is a real challenge. When we think of our kindergarten students today, how much is the world going to change in the 12 years by 2028 when they graduate? And so if we just give our kindergarten students today our existing curriculum, boy, are we doing them a disservice. We have to find ways to evolve and change while they are in our school system. And that's the part that I think is a tremendous challenge, and I think is a tremendous excitement about public education today. And Rotary then has a huge impact on that, and you know the many times that you have supported Hudson City Schools and our programs, and the support you've shown for youth in general in the community. And as I think about Rotary, I think, before coming to Hudson, I didn't know a whole lot about Rotary, and I didn't have an image. I guess I had an image about different clubs and organizations, and I thought, and I didn't really know. I mean, was it like the, Fred Flintstone? I think his was the Loyal Society, the Water Buffalo, and I didn't really know. I just had this image. So did I get a hat? Did I have a handshake? Or, did I get a chant? And I came to the first meeting with Steve Farnsworth several years ago, and and it's impactful. You walk in the first time, you start with a song, you start with a prayer, you start with a four-way test, and then you listen to the types of things that this club is talking about on a daily basis. And I went home and I told my wife, I said, I think that's who I want to be when I grow up. I think they represent who I want to be when I grow up. And when I think of Rotary, I think of really the concept of Robert Greenleaf, and I read this decades ago, but it has resonated with me, and I've tried to build my career based on the concept of servant leadership. And the servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first, then conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. That person is sharply different from the one who is leader first. The difference manifests itself in the care taken by the servant first to make sure that other people's highest priority needs are being served. And to me, that represents so much of what this club does and this organization does. It's why I'm glad to be a part of it and why I'm proud to be a part of it. So thanks for, I know it was over 3 minutes, but thanks for listening this morning.
I'm going to call up Evan McCauley next, but before I do, I want to acknowledge that we received a nice thank you letter from the Salvation Army. If you recall, we worked the Red Kettle at the Acme the Friday after Thanksgiving, and we did raise $454 that day for the Salvation Army. So that's a very nice letter that they sent. Evan?
Okay, I promise I won't be doing too much talking today. My role is in Rotary Information is to bring Rotary International to you and let you know kind of what's going on in Rotary International. You can find this video on the website, and I recommend that you check the website out from time to time. They're always updating it with articles and videos to keep you informed. But this video is about the 2016-2017 Rotary International president. His name is John Germ. He's from the Chattanooga, Tennessee club. And some of the things that he'll mention in this video, eradicating polio is still the #1 priority. Afghanistan and Pakistan are the 2 countries out there that still have cases of polio. So that's still his #1 priority. And another thing that we'll hopefully hear him talk about in a second is how the Rotary image is not the only thing that's bringing new members to the clubs. It's clubs evolving and making room for young new members and getting them involved. And I think our club is on that exact track. So we're very much in line with Rotary International. And Paul Harris believed that serving humanity is the most worthwhile thing a man can do. President John Germ in this video will mention that how much of an opportunity Rotary is to make that happen. And if we could just go back to the beginning.
One recommendation to all Rotarians: if you do have a video that you want to show, I highly recommend that you come early and we test it out, because we have to work through the audio settings on the computer in order to get things to work. So I will work on this.
Okay.
But I'll have to do a little bit offline, so we'll try and bring it up later. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to get to, and you can see it online.
Yeah, thank you to James for giving everyone homework. Your homework is to go online and check out this video and stay up to date with Rotary International. Also, while I'm up here, I'm going to mention something really quickly. I'm involved in an organization in town called the Hudson League for Service. And the week of February 14th, we're kicking off a Random Acts of Kindness week here in Hudson. And I have flyers for that. So I'm going to pass those out to the tables after I'm done here. But basically, the goal is to just do something nice for somebody. And we're going to be trying to use social media to really up that. So do something nice for somebody, take a picture of it, and use the hashtag RAK_Hudson, R-A-K Hudson. Thank you.
James, can you pull up the district website? No, no video. You have on your tables, a save the date reminder of the centennial celebration to be held on October the 23rd. October the 23rd to 16. This celebration is going to be at Severance Hall. It includes members of Rotary International, Rotarians, guests, distinguished visitors and speakers, as well as the Cleveland Orchestra. There are 2,000 seats available for this event. That's all there is in Severance Hall. This event is being sponsored by our district, but it's not really a district event. It's an international event. We just happen to be the home of Arch Klumpf, who was the founder of the Rotary Foundation, and it's the 100th year. You see it, James?
So where was it? Yes.
Right here.
I'm sorry. I have audience members helping me. Yeah, I was recommending various.
So there are 2,000 tickets. You should have gotten information on email about purchasing tickets. In our district, there's about 2,000 Rotarians. And so if everybody went and brought their guests, that'd be 4,000 people. But there are other people that we know. There are people coming from Chicago, Evanston, Detroit, Cincinnati, Toledo, Erie, Toronto. So this will be a sellout event for sure. So if you think you want to attend, and I guarantee that you will not be able to attend the next celebration, you might want to consider going online. Yeah, if you can, yes, that's what you have here. And getting concert tickets and/or dinner tickets. We're under pre-sale now. The pre-sale will end within days. I just was at a cluster meeting yesterday. The pre-sale will end within days, and then it will be opened up to all Rotarians or the public throughout Northeast Ohio and whatever. And James, if you can scroll down a little bit. So that's it. We could, if we wanted to, purchase a block of 10 tickets of various sizes. There's $75 tickets on up. And if there's a need for that, we could do so. We don't want to take that financial obligation if there's not a need for it. But how many people here think they might want to attend and take advantage of a block of tickets if we do it? 1, 2, 3, 4. You got your tickets, right? You got yours, yeah. So we have about 5 or 6 people. So we may consider that. So, thank you. Thanks, James. So at this time, we will move into our main program for the day. I will bring up George Snyder.
Good morning, Rotarians. How about John Kasich last night, #2 in New Hampshire? Here at Rotary, we are in the midst, as you know, of Entrepreneur Month. Last week, we heard from Greg Malkin, who is a serial entrepreneur and university school teacher, and was also the creator of Lemonade Day. Next week, we will hear from Hudson's own Tom Murdo, the founder of Step 2 and First and Main. The week following, we hear from yet another entrepreneur, Dan Quigg, on the challenges that many startups face. Today's speaker is Ray Leach, who is the founding CEO of Jumpstart Incorporated, which is a Cleveland-based and nationally recognized venture development organization that helps high-potential business startups and scale-ups access the kind of investment capital and human talent they need to succeed. In my words, not his, Ray is like a super traffic cop at the intersections of public, private, and philanthropic partnerships, which together can accelerate job creation and economic development in neighborhoods, cities, regions, and even countries. Ray was a Sloan Fellow and a graduate of MIT's Sloan School of Management, as well as the University of Akron. He began his career at IBM and went on to co-found 4 startup technology corporations. He was a founding member of the U.S. Department of Commerce's National Advisory Council on Innovation. He currently serves as chair of the National Venture Capital Association's Alumni Council, is a founding member of the Council's Diversity Task Force, and is a board member of Invent Now, which educates 100,000 U.S. kids each summer in the STEM disciplines of science, technology, engineering, and math. Please join me now in giving a very warm Rotary welcome to Ray Leach.
Good morning, everybody. Great to be here. I have cards. I want to make sure everybody knows I have cards. I'll leave them up here because I'm expecting lots of emails, phone calls, and opportunities to work together after I have a chance to talk for maybe 15 minutes about Jumpstart, what we're about, what we're up to. This is a little, I'm a Northeast Ohio native, born in the Midwest, born over near Pittsburgh, but my parents both grew up. I'm actually a 4th generation Akron person. And I've had family that's lived in Hudson for 80 years, owned property or lived in Hudson. And I live in Cleveland Heights now, so that's not so far, but it's always good to be back in Summit County. So I'm really excited to be here today. So I could talk for an hour. I'm going to talk for 15 minutes, and I'm going to start with what is Jumpstart about? What do we do? Hopefully. We've got the arrow to the right, I think. So we're a nonprofit organization that's in business to accelerate the growth of startup technology companies and ambitious, established small companies located in Northeast Ohio. So we've been around for almost 12 years. I'll talk a little bit about our impact in a minute, which is in the billions. The companies that we've helped have generated more than $1 billion of economic impact in Northeast Ohio. But we're an organization today of 55 people who spend all day, every day, helping business owners in Northeast Ohio that are small, let's say no larger than 100 employees, maybe a couple hundred employees in the largest sense, when we first meet them, help those companies dramatically increase their revenues and employees, because it's all about economic impact, economic growth in Northeast Ohio. Why are small companies and startup companies so important? Unlike many of you growing up in your careers, and I was kind of at the tail end of Northeast Ohio in particular being a big company town. Well, it hasn't been a big company town now for a long time, and it's never going to be again. Nor is the United States going to be a big company-driven economy. If you look over the last 30 years, 100% of all net new jobs have been created by startup companies or companies with less than 30 employees. This is only going to accelerate. As an interesting anecdote, you may or may not have seen this, by the year 2024, economists are saying 40% of the workforce will be freelance, 1099, not, in other words, self-employed. So the shift from the business world in the 60s, 70s, and 80s to the aughts, the teens, and the 20s, the shift is very, very dramatic. And to the comments of earlier today about what kids are learning in school, absolutely you better be entrepreneurial. Absolutely you better be able to figure out how to think about building a birdhouse in the 2nd grade. Because when you come out of university at 22, you're highly, highly likely to be responsible to invent your career. So this idea that Jumpstart's been very, very focused on culture change, giving lots and lots of examples of why and how small companies, startup entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs are so important to the region, and that those individuals need to be helped, assisted, celebrated, championed, because they are the John Cyberlings of Northeast Ohio's future. We're not going to see these big companies as we've had in the past. So today, when you say, well, what are some of the things Jumpstart does, or what are we looking for? So one of the things I'm hopeful for with the cards is you're going to start sending me entrepreneurs that we can help, because that's what we're in the business to do. So when I say technology startups, we're talking about the guy or gal in the basement with the perpetual motion machine, the cure for cancer, a new form of energy, the inventor founder. Jumpstart's worked with 1,000 inventor founders in the last 8 years. We're looking for ideas that are, in that case, we're looking for big ideas, multi-billion-dollar markets, global sales opportunities, but the company is 5 to 15 years away from probably even having significant revenue. Really, really, really early stage technology businesses. Why is that so important? Those businesses drive 40% of the total U.S. economy today, and in Northeast Ohio, it's about 8%. We've been a large company, more incremental, innovation-driven economy for a long time, and that has to change, or Northeast Ohio and Ohio will never be competitive again. So and it's a chicken or egg issue, right? If you're in Silicon Valley or in Boston, you're living in an environment where just the economy is much more diversified. A startup company, that's a normal thing to do. In Northeast Ohio, up until about 10, 12, 15 years ago, if you were running a startup, particularly a tech company, people thought you couldn't get a real job, or that you couldn't work with others, or that what's wrong with you. The culture of Northeast Ohio in 2004 was very much backwards in that regard in terms of the overall national trend. So we're out there looking for inventors who are going to build patented or really interesting disruptive technologies, the sectors. We work across a handful of different technology sectors, but IT, biomedical, energy, and electronics probably represent 90% of the companies that we work with. And this has been the history of Jumpstart, is focusing on these kinds of entrepreneurs. We see 350 of these entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, every year in Northeast Ohio who come to Jumpstart. We end up working with about 150 to 200 of them in a significant way. In other words, spend more than 20 to 30 hours with hundreds of those each year. And then over the last couple of years, we've started to work with what we call ambitious scale-ups, companies that aren't necessarily new, aren't necessarily tech, but have a disproportionate chance to create jobs and economic opportunity, not only in the region, but particularly in inner cities. So one of the biggest challenges that Jumpstart faces, and certainly correlates to Northeast Ohio, is Northeast Ohio needs to create 150,000 net new jobs in the next 8 years to reach the national net new job creation median. At our current run rate, startups are going to create about 35,000. Today, startups in Northeast Ohio, since in the last 8 years, have created 10,000 total new jobs at about 77,000 per job. So it's a much higher wage per job. Northeast Ohio needs 150,000 net new jobs. So Jumpstart's work now is expanded to, hey, if there's a bakery that's at $2 million in revenue and 30 employees, and we can get them to $8 million in revenue and 100 employees, Jumpstart wants to leverage what we know to how to grow companies, even with something that's more conventional, not necessarily high tech, not necessarily super sexy, but we're looking for job creation. So, we've expanded our activities across, and there's no, food is fine. We talked a little bit earlier this morning about franchisors and franchisees. We're in a huge job challenge in the region, and trying to accelerate small companies these other types of small companies is a big piece of our new focus. So when you talk about, well, what do we do? The first thing, I think for small companies, none of these organizations have all the resources that they need, particularly on the intellectual side. It's not so much the money. The money's important, but if you don't know if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a CFO, if you don't have other peers in the organization, co-managers or whatever, that are helping you think through the opportunities to grow the business, you're not going to get there. So Jumpstart spends tens of thousands of hours every year providing coaching and mentoring. Our staff does coaching and mentoring to about 350 entrepreneurs a year. And some of these folks are coming in running established businesses with 30, 50, 100 employees. Some are a gal working out of her kitchen who's got a really big idea and has no idea where to start in terms of, I've got to solve 10 things. What's the first thing I need to solve out of the 10? Then what's second? What's third? So Jumpstart has a team of people that are full-time on our staff that work with these companies. We also have about 125 mentors. So one of the pitches I have for the folks in the room today, if you're interested in either being mentored or being a mentor, Jumpstart now has a very, very robust program where we're mentoring hundreds of companies, all different kinds of companies across Northeast Ohio. So these mentors, think of it, they really serve as board of advisors to these companies on a volunteer basis. They meet with the companies like 8 to 10 hours a month And these are, again, small businesses, don't have all the resources that they need to grow. So coaching and mentoring is a huge piece of what we do. Along with that, we also have internal capabilities, like we have an 8-person marketing team. We build websites for these companies. We integrate their social media strategies, PR, you name it in the marketing side. We have an internal marketing team that provides a lot of these services to companies for free. We also have a 4-person internal talent recruiting team. So on an annual basis, Jumpstart's recruiting about 400 companies, 400 employees, senior level employees, to companies in Northeast Ohio on a pro bono basis. So anecdotally, if you know an entrepreneur and they're looking for great talent, Jumpstart has 4 people, all they do all day long is recruit talent to these companies on a pro bono basis. Because now we're getting to the point where these companies, they can't afford to pay for recruiting. They need recruiting services, so Jumpstart provides those. In a minute, you're going to hear a lot about access to capital, and we've spent a tremendous amount of time and money providing capital to companies, so I'll talk more about that. Sales strategies. We surveyed 6,000 companies in Northeast Ohio about a year and a half ago on what their top, all different kinds of companies, these are established companies, what are their top needs? Number 1, I have a big hole in my management team. I've got to figure out how to fill. 2, I don't know how to sell my current products to new customers, and I have no idea how to innovate new customers for my current, or new products for my current customers. So like Sales 101, how to build a sales and product development strategy, huge gap in the market in Northeast Ohio. So we spend a lot of time and energy helping these organizations not only understand what their business strategy might be overall, but like, how do you build a sales strategy? How do you hire a sales team? How do you manage that sales team? And then, of course, growth assistance, because once you start growing, all bets are off. All sorts of crazy things begin to happen with these businesses. So the impact, and this is very high level. So Jumpstart today funds 14 other nonprofits that also work in this space. So yes, Jumpstart is a single organization, 50-some folks, but we fund 14 other organizations that are part of our network. And a lot of that money, not all, but a lot of the money, a significant portion, about 1/3 of it comes from the state of Ohio. So really comes from you, the taxpayers of the state of Ohio. Provide money to nonprofits like ours. We have to raise matching funds. Typically, it's about 70-30, so 70% of private money needs to be matched against 30% of public money, and some of the times that's federal money as well, to provide all these services and all these different activities. So on the left is just Jumpstart's, some very high-level pieces of just what Jumpstart has done, and then the network is to the right in terms of the 10,000 total jobs in Northeast Ohio is also through partnerships with the entities that we fund, and I could talk more about that, but we don't have time for it. So as an aggregate, if you look at 2010, on a budget spend of about $65 million across 15 organizations, the economic impact of the work in Northeast Ohio was $1.5 billion. Since 2010, and let me just share, as a fellow taxpayer to the state of Ohio, the monies that we get from the state require incredible rigor on reporting, incredible rigor. So they're the ones that just gave us this economic data. You do not need to worry at all about the state of Ohio getting ripped off for the work that we do, because we literally, our quarterly reports are probably 600 to 800 pages. I mean, it's they know exactly what we're doing with the state's money, but it's $1.4 billion. So the typical leverage on our work within, and of course we're helping the companies. We're not generating the economic impact. This is all the net new jobs, all the new taxes these companies have generated since 2010 on a spend of about $65 million total spend. So it's $30 million from the state. So the payback to the state's been really, really powerful, and recently the state's decided to put even more money in this activity across Ohio. Next slide. I don't know why this isn't working, but so I wanted to wrap up talking a little bit about capital. So in the last about 90 days, Jumpstart just closed $50 million total of new capital to invest in about 100 companies across Northeast Ohio in the next 3 years. So we have we actually have 3 funds and a bank. So on the last year, Jumpstart's also created a bank to help more traditional and established companies. So the first, the Evergreen Fund. This is the fund that Jumpstart's been investing out of since 2005. We're going to invest $10 million in 30 pre-revenue Northeast Ohio tech companies, an average investment of about $400,000 from 2018. And to give you a sense, we expect this $10 million of investment that we're going to make to generate about $400 million in follow-on private investment and about 3,000 jobs by 2020. So in this fund, Jumpstart's the first organized professional entity that's making an investment in this business. And we're helping to professionalize the business with our services, but the money is helping to develop product. Their technology, their product, or their service. So, and in our original tranche, or in the Evergreen Fund historically, which I didn't create a slide for, but up till today, we had invested $27 million in the Evergreen Fund to date. That $27 million has leveraged $1.4 billion in private investment since 2004. So the idea that you can build a nonprofit entity like a Jumpstart, it invests in the things that are so early no one will invest in today in a place like Stowe, Canton, Cleveland, Youngstown, and you can mature that business rapidly enough that that company can raise. We recently had a company raise one company raised $160 million. They now have 350 employees. They're 4 years old. So this can happen, but the whole chicken or egg scenario, well, why isn't this just natural? It naturally happened in Cleveland and Akron in 1890 to 1920, but it stopped happening because we became a large company-driven economy. So this idea of recreating the cultural knowledge, the activity, and the investing. So that's the first fund. The second fund, we're super proud of this. This is the largest seed fund in the United States focused exclusively on African American, Latino, and women-founded tech companies. It's a $10 million fund. That's exciting and incredibly sad. The largest fund in the United States right now that's investing in pre-revenue tech companies is Jumpstart's Focus Fund. We just announced it about a month ago. It's going to have a similar profile to the Evergreen Fund, except in the Evergreen Fund historically, 34% of the monies that Jumpstart has historically invested went into women and minority companies. That's about 8 times higher than the national average. Now we have a fund that's 100% women minority focused. The bottom left is the next fund. This fund has been investing for the last about 10 months. And this is Jumpstart's first significant for-profit entity. So Jumpstart now has a fund that's a pure for-profit. These first 2 funds, the real purpose of the funds are to invest in the things that no one will invest in, because it's a catalyst fund. It's trying to help these things get off the ground. The next fund is a for-profit, so it'll be taxed, like a for-profit. It's co-investing with entities from across the country who want to invest in a Northeast Ohio tech company, but they require a co-investor here. So these are now companies that have $2 million, $4 million, $10 million in revenue. They have customers. They have a management team. They're much more proven. And the problem that Jumpstart was seeing, unfortunately, probably mainly because of the 2008 recession, was that the for-profit venture firms that were located in Ohio, about 80% of them went out of business between 2008 and 2013. So we had all this pre-seed, this really early stage activity, but when the company got to be more real and they needed to raise $5 million in capital, typically when a company, early stage tech company, needs to raise that kind of money, they need a local investor. If an investor from California is going to come in and look at that company and it's $5 million, they're just going to take the company to California. Why bother? They almost require a local investor, because the local investor can watch over the company. If you're in California and it's a $2 million business, you're not going to spend a lot of time looking over that company. So Jumpstart basically created a fund that's $20 million. Our average investment in this case is about $1 million per company. So these are businesses, again, that are much more further along. And we're going to invest in about 15 to 17 companies. We've already invested in the first 6 out of the next fund. And then the fourth, in the bottom right, left corner, is Growth Opportunity Partners. And this is a brand new bank that Jumpstart just created and funded last year. And this is the entity that's not investing. It's not like we're buying ownership. In these first 3 funds, we're buying ownership of the company. We're not buying a majority ownership. But, you know, in the Focus Fund, if we're investing in a woman that's created a biotech company, we might be putting in $500,000 for 20% of the business. We own 20% of the business going forward. In the Growth Opportunity Partner scenario, it's a loan. It's not we're trying to get ownership of the business. What we're focused on there are companies that need to raise between $200,000 and $500,000 in capital who cannot get a bank loan. They're 3 years old, they're cash flow positive, they're real companies, they're not startups. But for whatever reason, they can't get a bank loan, can't get an SBA loan. So Jumpstart's anticipating we're going to make about 50 of these loans through 2018. So across these 4 funds, we're going to invest or lend in probably 115 companies in Northeast Ohio in the next 30 months. So a huge piece, you know, when you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to scale and grow your business, whether it's a tech startup or an established company, you know, everybody thinks it's the money. And of course, the money's important. You can't really grow your business, at least not aggressively, if you're not highly profitable, without somebody's money. But this marriage of really, really powerful assistance, pro bono, and the money is the magic. And there's very few organizations in the United States that have been supported to the level that Jumpstart has in order to be able to do both at scale. And one of the reasons why we've been able to launch these 4 funds so before I get to my last slide is our original investing in this Evergreen Fund that I talked about, the $27 million into these early stage companies, is generating great returns for Jumpstart. So we ended up with ownership through those investments. It's generating returns, and so we're able to replow those returns into these other funds. So the idea is that Jumpstart is one of the entities in town that's accelerating this evolution of diversity around our economy and the ability for these small companies to continue to grow, thrive, and hopefully become companies that at least employ hundreds of people, maybe thousands in some cases, but in most scenarios that won't be. They'll remain. Probably most companies we're going to help are going to be under 300 people. That's just the kind of the nature of the U.S. economy. So my last slide is ways that I think you could be part of our work. So first, encourage any entrepreneur you know. So, and here's the acid test for us, particularly around scale-ups. If they're running a bakery, they're running a manufacturing company, they're running a professional services firm, is the leader of that business someone you would bet on? I could care less about, you know, whether the product is being sold across the street, across town, across the country, across the world. The leader of the business is who we are the most interested in knowing, understanding, building a intellectual partnership with them, and then like jumping into the pool with them and like providing our resources to help them unlock the growth of their business. So if you know of an entrepreneur that has a big vision, but maybe not the resources he or she needs in order to unlock their growth and to accelerate, let them know about Jumpstart, because we're in business to help them. Second, I mentioned this earlier, volunteer as a mentor to either a tech startup or an ambitious company. So originally, as I mentioned, we did a lot of work only with tech startups. Now we're starting to work with a whole bunch of companies that have very different types of backgrounds. And frankly, Jumpstart's team is much more tech savvy than we are traditional business savvy. So we're very much looking for mentors in our program who are totally comfortable working with a distribution company. I mean, my company's created products that we gave to distribution companies to sell. That's my personal background. And the other thing that's nice is we have a huge amount of talent in Northeast Ohio that have run all different kinds of more traditional businesses. So there's all sorts of talent for us to leverage. So if you or someone you know would be interested in mentoring, please let me know. Third is get involved as an investor or a lender in one of these companies in Northeast Ohio. So we have today, Jumpstart has 4 funds, but we're connected to 9 other funds of all different types. You know, some funds are putting, you know, $10,000 into a company, other funds $100,000, or other groups of people. We're also very much involved in crowdfunding. So even if you're like, hey, I'd just be interested in, I may not have any interest in investing, I'd just like to get smarter or get better connected to the people who are making investments. There's clubs all across Northeast Ohio now that are making investments in all different kinds of businesses. Every week there's a meeting of some club or some group in the region, so we could help connect you to that. And then an additional point is participate in these entrepreneurial ecosystem events. So not in Jumpstart, I mentioned we fund 15 other entities. We also have a partnership with all 23 institutions of higher education in Northeast Ohio. So Jumpstart is doing something with every higher ed institution in the region, from Lake Erie College and Oberlin to Kent State to Akron to Case. Every single one we have some sort of partnership with, and we're collaborating in some way. And a lot of that has to do with the Burton D. Morgan Foundation, which of course is here in Hudson, who's been a strong partner of ours. So, you know, if you're interested in getting a little bit more knowledgeable, more connected to the system, because, you know, again, we're just one entity of a whole bunch of things going on, you could go to our website and learn more about events. And then the last piece, if there's something that maybe I haven't mentioned or that you'd like to talk about with myself or with Jumpstart or get connected to, feel free to email me, because to George's comment, we are kind of at the epicenter of an increasingly large ecosystem. 10, 12 years ago, to give you a sense of the scale and scope of the change, when I came back to Northeast Ohio after some time in Boston to get involved in Jumpstart, in the year before I got involved, we could identify about 10 companies in Northeast Ohio that got early stage seed funding or venture capital in 2003. Last year there was 76 companies in Cleveland that got early stage capital or venture capital in the tech space. So the amount of change that has happened over the last decade or so has been significant. Jumpstart started with just about a dozen of us. Now we're about 4 times the size. And that, I think, in many ways is indicative of kind of how this has continued to evolve and grow across Northeast Ohio and Ohio. So with that, that's all I wanted to share at a high level today. I think we might have a little time for questions. Any questions? Yes.
Ray, great presentation. Thank you for joining us this morning. 2 questions. In that first 2 funds that you mentioned, what's the percentage of, if you have the general feel, of companies you invest in that do not make it?
So if you use this is an interesting statistic, if you use our original 76 companies, we thought we'd lose half within 3 years. Of those 76, 16 have gone out of business, 15 have already sold. A couple of them created other businesses that we have ownership, so now the 76 is actually 79. So there's 46 active companies today. So it's been much better than we ever imagined.
Yeah, like a 65, 70% success.
Survival rate. And again, in that first fund, we invested to try to create companies. We weren't investing for financial return. Now we've ended up getting financial return, but that wasn't our motivation originally to invest. But the survival rate of our companies has been much higher than we thought.
All right, second question. Sorry, Peter. There's a company out of Jim Kostler's incubator in Youngstown. Seems like, was that your question? Knock that off your list. That really hit a home run. The name is escaping me.
It's not Turning.
Turning Technology?
Turning, yeah.
Did Jumpstart?
We didn't, because Turning was founded about 20 years ago. So it happened way before Jumpstart was created. So by the time that Jumpstart was on the scene, Turning was about 10 years old.
But you do a lot of work with young.
Oh yeah, so the Youngstown Business Incubator is one of the entities that we fund, or the state money flows through us to them. They also have we have resources like with these 14 organizations. One of the things I'm the most proud of is that state money not only goes to fund somebody who works at YBI, but that person works all across the region, or another person. So it's like the expertise that YBI has around IT software can be leveraged across the whole region, as opposed to, well, you got to go to Youngstown. So yeah, YBI is certainly one of our 14 kind of family members.
And you know George Buzzy real well.
I know George. I was just with him a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, George, and he looks great.
Yeah, he was in my office last week. So
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
recovered well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. I've heard a lot about Youngstown. I used to hear a lot about the Akron incubator, and before that I used to hear about Cleveland. I'm not hearing about either Cleveland or Akron these days. I'm curious as to what you might be able to say about them.
So on the Akron side, there's new leadership, a guy named Anthony Margita, who's at the Akron incubator. They are launching a whole set of new things. The funding to the Akron incubator through the state and Jumpstart has significantly increased in the last year. So they're gearing up to do a whole bunch of new things. There's something called Bits and Atoms, which is a kind of a innovation center. If all goes as planned, the EDA has supported a $2 million grant to build an innovation center in the Polsky building. So look for more exciting things, you know, I'd say for the Akron incubator. I mean, they're doing good work now. They're certainly one of our family members. Cleveland, it's interesting. There's a new initiative called Start Mart in Cleveland, which is a co-working center, a large co-working center that's in Terminal Tower. But the traditional incubators, BioEnterprise has one, and Magnet, which is the Manufacturing Advocacy Growth Network, has an incubator. And they're full, but there are a lot of incubators that are now being created by the private sector. So there's 7 incubators across Cleveland that are 100% private. So a private developer built the building, and now there's just startups that have filled the building. So there has not been, and I don't think there will be, another publicly supported incubator, at least in Cleveland, because there isn't really the need. The privates, it's now kind of moving to the private sector.
Thank you, Ray. So this is the 3rd week in a row where we've talked about entrepreneurship. And even Phil Herman mentioned entrepreneurship in the 2nd grade and in the high schools. So I think we see a trend. there. Next week, we will continue our discussion, and it'll be Tom Murdo will be here to talk, and Bill Wooldridge is our host for next week. I'd like to thank our greeters, Ron Barnhouse, our setup crew, Tom Page, James Field, John Hairston, and Ron Barnhouse. Thanks, Adriana, for coming today. There's a club board meeting today, and all are welcome to attend.